Bob Gainey punched in yet another goal, his sixth.
Probably one of the best defensive players that ever played the game. Everybody looked up to him.
All the big lines every time that we play any team, and he was stopping them.
The best line on an opponent, Bob would be head-to-head, oftentimes against the best player on that line.
Part of his job was to understand that sometimes the best offense is to play great defense and let the other guys score the goals.
He can score goals sometime. He was better defensively because that was his game.
He was counted on very, very strongly by the Canadiens to be the shutdown guy on his team.
In the summer of 1973, the National Hockey League gathered for its amateur draft, and one selection left reporters completely baffled. Robert Gainey had grown up playing for the Peterborough Petes in the Junior League, trained under legendary coach Roger Nielsen. From age 7 to 15, Gainey actually played defense before shifting to left wing, and that early defensive mindset, combined with Nielsen's iron discipline, forged him into a punishing hitting machine while still a teenager. He became known for brutal mid-ice checks that injured opposing forwards throughout junior hockey. Yet, when Montreal Canadiens general manager Sam Pollock and chief scout Claude Ruel used the 8th overall pick on him, the hockey world was stunned, because Gainey had scored only 22 goals that season. Montreal's press corps famously asked each other, "Bob who?" Claude Ruel later defended the pick, saying, "We had plenty of goal scorers in our system, but we lacked size and toughness. He had no impressive scoring numbers in junior. If a player doesn't score in junior, nobody takes him in the first round. I bet no other team even had him rated that high, but Montreal did. He was going to give everything he had for this team." The Conn Smythe Trophy, awarded to the most valuable player of the Stanley Cup playoffs, had almost always gone to elite scorers or brilliant goaltenders. In 1979, Bob Gainey shattered that pattern entirely. Across 16 playoff games, he recorded only 16 points, yet he still won the award because he single-handedly suffocated the attacks of the Toronto Maple Leafs, the Boston Bruins, and the New York Rangers. Every rush these teams attempted seemed to collapse the moment it reached him near the blue line, clearing the path for Montreal's 4th consecutive Stanley Cup championship. His greatest legacy, though, came from the Frank Selke Trophy, created to honor the league's best defensive forward. Gainey won it in each of its first 4 seasons, from 1978 through 1981, a streak no other player has ever matched. His longtime teammate Guy Carbonneau later explained, "The Selke Trophy was created to honor players like Bob. The goal scorers always get the attention, but Bob's quiet work mattered just as much in getting this team to the championship." Even Soviet national team coach Viktor Tikhonov admitted after facing him, "Bob Gainey is the most technically complete hockey player in the world." Bob Gainey may have been an elite defensive stylist, but he was never a player who avoided physical confrontation. Across his career, he racked up 17 official fighting majors. On December 6, 1984, during a heated rivalry game between Montreal Canadiens and Boston Bruins, Boston forward Terry O'Reilly, one of the most notorious enforcers in the league, deliberately provoked and roughed up one of Gainey's teammates. Without hesitation, team captain Gainey dropped his gloves and stick and charged straight into a full fistfight with O'Reilly. The two traded heavy punches directly to each other's faces as the crowd roared, proving that Gainey would never back down from even the toughest fighters in the league. Sports writers covering the era noted that Gainey was not just a defensive specialist, but was willing to trade punches with heavyweight enforcers like O'Reilly to defend his captaincy. Gainey himself later summed up his approach to leadership. "Leadership is making the decision you believe is right and standing behind it, regardless of the consequences or the outcome." Wayne Gretzky was the greatest scoring machine in hockey history, a player who could tear apart almost any defense with ease. But whenever Edmonton Oilers faced Montreal Canadiens, from the late 1970s through the 1980s, and even in international Canada Cup tournaments, Gretzky ran into a problem he could not solve: the relentless shadow of Bob Gainey, wearing number 23. Gainey applied a merciless one-on-one shadowing technique, cutting off passing lanes and delivering constant physical contact the instant Gretzky touched the puck. His relentless pursuit and uncanny ability to anticipate plays before they happened left Gretzky repeatedly shut down and unable to generate offense. Years later, Gretzky himself gave what may be the ultimate tribute to an opponent, stating plainly, "Of all the players who ever checked me on the ice, Bob Gainey was the best, and he gave me more trouble than anyone else." Coming from the man who redefined what scoring meant in hockey, that admission alone speaks to just how dominant Gainey truly was. By the spring of 1986, Bob Gainey had become team captain and the ultimate leader of Montreal Canadiens as they battled through a grueling playoff run to the Stanley Cup final against Calgary Flames. Along the way, he suffered devastating injuries to both shoulders. One shoulder was completely dislocated, while the other had torn ligaments and a severe separation. Under normal medical guidance, an athlete with this kind of double injury would struggle to even lift an arm for basic daily tasks. Yet Gainey kept taking pain medication, had both shoulders tightly strapped, and played through all 20 playoff games, contributing 5 goals and 5 assists along the way. After Montreal defeated Calgary Flames to claim the championship, the trophy presentation took place on the ice at the Montreal Forum. Gainey approached the Stanley Cup, which weighs nearly 15 kilograms. Through what seemed like sheer willpower alone, he used his 2 battered arms to summon every ounce of strength he had left and raise the championship trophy above his head, leaving doctors, teammates, and opponents alike in complete disbelief. Sports writers and teammates in Montreal that year captured the moment perfectly. Bob Gainey had managed to lift the Stanley Cup in 1986, something that seemed nearly impossible, with one shoulder dislocated and the other fully separated. Behind the armor he wore on the ice, Bob Gainey's personal life carried devastating tragedy. In 1995, his wife Kathy passed away after a 5-year battle with cancer. Then, on December 8, 2006, his 25-year-old daughter Laura Gainey was swept overboard by a violent wave and lost at sea off the deck of the tall ship Picton Castle in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. When authorities on the Cook Islands released an initial report that appeared to shift blame onto Laura herself, Gainey, then serving as general manager of Montreal Canadiens, showed the same unshakable resolve that defined his playing career. He went public on CBC television, calling the investigation a dishonest cover-up, and fought relentlessly until the Transportation Safety Board of Canada opened a formal inquiry and acknowledged the ship's safety violations. Doug Armstrong, then assistant general manager of Dallas Stars, once said of the family, "Bob and Kathy worried about other people more than themselves. They never let their own struggles seem bigger than anyone else's." That untouchable dignity was Bob's extraordinary quality. Gainey himself stated firmly on CBC's The Fifth Estate in 2007, "Like any lie or cover-up, they are trying to turn a tragedy into the victim's fault to change the nature of what happened. We will not stop until the truth is known." Do you think he deserves to be honored as a legend? Like this video and subscribe to the channel to support us. Thank you so much.